They kicked her out like she did not belong. A luxury restaurant, filled with wealthy faces, turned a hard-working mother and her young sons away. No apology, just cold stares and dismissive words. But life has a way of turning tables. Years later, she walked back through those same doors, not for revenge, not to dine, but to claim what was hers. What happened next will leave you speechless. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. Maya was a hard-working single mother with 2 young sons, Liam and Noah. She'd always done her best to give her boys a good life, even if it meant working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Despite the struggles, she carried herself with quiet dignity and a heart full of dreams. One day, Maya decided to treat her sons to something special. A dinner at a luxury restaurant she had passed by many times but never dared to enter. The place was stunning. Polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and waiters dressed sharper than most people's best outfits. It was the kind of place where people wore expensive suits, whispered about business deals, and judged others with just a glance. Maya saved up for weeks to make that night possible. She wanted her sons to experience something different, to feel like they belonged anywhere, no matter where they came from. But as soon as they walked through the door, she felt it, that shift in the room. The hostess's forced smile, the subtle glances from other diners, and the quiet judgment hanging in the air. But Maya held her head high, determined to show her sons that they deserved to be there just as much as anyone else. Little did she know, that night would change her life forever. Maya and her sons, Liam and Noah, were finally seated at a small table near the corner of the luxurious restaurant. She smiled at her boys, proud that she had made this special evening possible. The menu was filled with dishes she could barely pronounce, but that did not matter. What mattered was the look of excitement in her sons' eyes. But it didn't take long for Maya to notice the subtle signs: the waiter's cold, dismissive attitude, the delayed service, the uncomfortable glances from nearby tables. While other families were greeted warmly, Maya's polite requests were met with indifference. Minutes turned into an awkward silence at their table. Maya noticed the boys shifting uncomfortably in their seats, sensing something was wrong. A manager approached, not with a welcoming smile, but with a forced expression. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice stiff. "We just realized this table was reserved. I'll have to ask you to move." Maya's heart sank. She glanced around. There were empty tables everywhere. She knew what this was, not a mistake, not a reservation issue, but something far uglier. She stayed calm. "We're already settled. My sons are eating. Can we stay?" The manager's smile faded. "I'm sorry, but it's policy." Maya looked at her sons, their small faces filled with confusion. She felt her throat tighten, but she refused to show weakness. Without causing a scene, she quietly gathered their things and left. Outside, as they walked into the night, Maya held her son's hands tightly. She felt the sting of humiliation, but also something stronger: determination. She looked down at Liam and Noah, who asked softly, "Mom, why did they make us leave?" Maya knelt beside them and said, "Because some people forget that respect doesn't come from what you wear or where you sit. But we will never let them make us feel small." That night, Maya sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the receipt she never got to use. But instead of feeling defeated, an idea started to grow. What if, she thought, I could create a place where no one ever feels the way I felt tonight? That thought lit a fire inside her. Years passed. Maya worked tirelessly, starting a small catering business from her tiny apartment. She cooked late into the night, delivering food with her sons, helping after school. Every rejection, every failure only fueled her determination. She faced countless challenges: financial struggles, people doubting her, Doors slammed in her face, but she never gave up. Eventually, her business grew. People loved her food, her warmth, her spirit. Investors noticed. Opportunities opened. Maya expanded from catering to owning her own small cafe. But she wasn't done. One day, Maya saw a news article about the very same luxury restaurant, the one that had humiliated her. It was struggling, on the brink of closing due to poor management. Maya stared at the headline, her heart racing. She saw it not as a chance for revenge, but as an opportunity to reclaim her dignity. She made the call. Weeks later, Maya walked through the restaurant doors again, this time not as a customer. She wore a sleek, elegant outfit, her confidence filling the space. The same manager who once kicked her out greeted her at the door, not recognizing her at first. "Hello, I'm here to meet the owner," Maya said with a calm smile. The manager, still oblivious, replied, "Of course. And you are?" Maya's smile grew. "I'm Maya, the new owner." The manager's face turned pale. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Maya walked past him, standing in the center of the restaurant that once made her feel small. But now she owned every inch of it. Maya stood tall in the very place that once made her feel invisible. The same restaurant, the same polished floors, the same glimmering chandeliers, but everything was different now. She was not the nervous woman hoping to be treated with basic decency. She was the owner. The manager, Mr. Thompson, stood frozen, struggling to process what he had just heard. His face, once filled with smug superiority, was now pale with disbelief. He remembered her now. How could he not? The woman he had dismissed with a few cold words years ago was now signing the papers that owned the very ground he stood on. Maya walked through the restaurant, each step echoing with silent power. She glanced at the familiar faces, some of the same staff who had watched her humiliation without a word back then. They avoided her gaze, their past actions replaying in their minds like an unwanted movie. Mr. Thompson finally found his voice, weak and uncertain. "Maya, I didn't realize it was you." She turned, her expression calm. "You didn't need to. That's the problem." The weight of her words filled the room. It was not anger she carried. It was strength, the kind that comes from rising after being pushed down. He stumbled through an awkward apology, but Maya didn't flinch. "This isn't about an apology," she said softly. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to rebuild." The restaurant had been struggling for years, bad reviews, declining customers, and poor leadership. But Maya saw potential where others saw failure. She had a vision, not just to own the place, but to transform it. In her first staff meeting, Maya stood before the employees, some still uncomfortable in her presence. She spoke with the same grace she had carried that painful night years ago. "I believe in second chances," she began. "This restaurant gave me a lesson I'll never forget. But now, it's time to teach a new one about respect, dignity, and growth." She did not fire Mr. Thompson immediately. Instead, she gave him a choice: learn, change, or leave. The power dynamic had shifted, but Maya didn't need to belittle him to prove her worth. She led with quiet authority, showing that real leadership isn't about control. It's about character. Months passed. Under Maya's leadership, the restaurant transformed. It wasn't just the decor or the menu that changed, it was the atmosphere. Kindness replaced judgment. Warmth replaced indifference. Customers returned, drawn not just by the food but by the welcoming spirit Maya infused into every corner. One day, Maya's sons, now older, visited the restaurant. They sat at the same table where they had been asked to leave years ago. But this time, they were guests of honor. Liam looked around and whispered, "Mom, do you remember that day?" Maya smiled. I remember. But look around. This is what happens when you don't let the world define you. As they enjoyed their meal, Mr. Thompson approached, no longer the arrogant man he once was. Maya, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me a chance to be better, she nodded. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. Maya didn't just reclaim her dignity. She rebuilt a space where no one would feel small again. Her success wasn't about owning a restaurant. It was about owning her story, her journey, and her strength. Maya's transformation of the restaurant was nothing short of remarkable. But the true twist was not in the fact that she owned the place. It was in what she did with that power. While many expected her to seek revenge on those who had humiliated her, Maya had no interest in that. Her focus was on building something better, something meaningful. She believed success was not about proving others wrong, but about staying true to herself. One afternoon, a man entered the restaurant. He was older now, but Maya recognized him instantly. He had been one of the customers who had laughed quietly with his friends when Maya and her sons were kicked out years ago. His smug expression back then was unforgettable. Now, he stood at the entrance, looking around as if trying to understand why the place felt different. He did not recognize Maya at first. She approached him with her usual grace and asked, "Table for one?" He nodded, seemingly distracted. As he sat down and looked over the menu, something about Maya's voice tugged at his memory. He glanced up, studying her face, and then realization hit him. His expression shifted from confusion to shock. "You," he stammered, "you used to." Maya smiled softly. "Yes, I was here before. But things have changed, haven't they?" The man's face turned red. He fumbled for words, perhaps expecting anger or confrontation. But Maya remained calm, her warmth disarming him more than any harsh words ever could. "I remember that day," he whispered, guilt creeping into his voice. "I was wrong." Maya nodded gently. "We all have moments we regret. What matters is what we learn from them." The man sat quietly, reflecting on her words. He had walked in expecting just another meal, but he left with something more, a lesson he would never forget. But that was not the only surprise. Months later, Maya hosted a community event at the restaurant. It was an open invitation for people from all walks of life. No dress codes, no status symbols, just a space for connection and respect. As the event buzzed with laughter and conversation, a woman approached Maya. She was dressed modestly, her eyes filled with both admiration and hesitation. "I've been wanting to meet you," the woman said softly. "I used to work here, years ago. I was there the day they made you leave." Maya's heart raced, memories flooding back. But she kept her calm. "I was just a server back then," the woman continued, "and I did nothing. I saw what happened and I stayed silent. I've regretted that day ever since." Maya listened, her heart softening. "Silence can be loud," she replied gently. "But the fact that you're here now says you've grown." The woman nodded, her eyes misty. "I just wanted to say thank you for showing us what real strength looks like." That moment was Maya's true victory. Not the ownership, not the success, but the quiet impact she had on hearts and minds. She realized that her journey had not just changed her life. It had changed others too. Maya's journey had come full circle, but her story was far from over. Owning the restaurant was not just about reclaiming her dignity. It was about creating a space where no one else would feel the sting of disrespect she once did. The restaurant flourished under her leadership. It was no longer just a place to eat. It was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of grace and growth. People from all walks of life filled the tables: business executives, families, students, even those who once looked down on her. But Maya welcomed them all with the same warmth and kindness, because she knew that change starts with compassion, not bitterness. One day, Maya sat by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky with hues of gold and orange. Liam and Noah, now teenagers, joined her. They had grown up witnessing their mother's strength, learning lessons that no classroom could teach. "Mom," Liam said, breaking the silence, "do you ever think about that day, the day they made us leave?" Maya smiled softly, her eyes reflecting both pain and pride. "I do, but not with anger. That day taught me something powerful. It showed me who I am and what I'm capable of." She paused, then added, "If it weren't for that moment, I might never have found the courage to build this." Her sons nodded, understanding the depth of her words. They were not just sitting in a restaurant. They were sitting in the middle of a story written with perseverance and hope. Maya's staff had also changed. Those who once carried silent prejudices learned from her example. They saw how kindness could transform not just a workplace, but their own lives. Mr. Thompson, the manager who had once dismissed her, became one of her most dedicated employees. He had grown too, learning that respect is not a privilege you give. It's a right everyone deserves. At the restaurant's anniversary celebration, Maya stood before a crowd of friends, family, and customers. Her voice was steady, filled with emotion. "This place isn't just about food," she began. "It's about second chances, about growth, and about the belief that no one should be defined by a single moment or judged by appearances." She looked around the room, her eyes meeting faces both familiar and new. "We all make mistakes," she continued. "What matters is how we choose to learn from them. This restaurant is proof that change is possible, not just for a business, but for people too." The applause that followed was not just for her success, but for the journey she had taken and the lessons she had shared along the way. Maya didn't just change a restaurant. She changed hearts. She turned a place that once symbolized exclusion into a beacon of acceptance. And as she watched her sons grow, knowing they carried her strength within them, she realized her greatest achievement wasn't the restaurant itself. It was the legacy of kindness, resilience, and courage she had left behind. Because in the end, success isn't about what you own. It's about who you become and how you inspire others to be better. Maya's story is not just about a restaurant. It is about resilience, growth, and the power of never letting someone else define your worth. She turned a moment of humiliation into a lifetime of purpose. She showed the world that respect is not something you beg for. It is something you carry within yourself. Her success was not just in the business she built, but in the lives she touched. Maya's strength was not in owning the restaurant, but in owning her journey, her choices, and her voice. Now, let me ask you, have you ever faced a moment where someone tried to make you feel small? How did you rise above it? Or maybe you have seen someone else's strength inspire change. What lessons did it teach you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire someone today who needs to hear it. And if Maya's story moved you, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us of the strength we all carry within. Thank you for watching. Remember, your story matters. Your voice matters. And no one can take away your worth unless you let them.